What's going on, everybody? So, today is the birthday of a man that I am proud, extremely proud to be named after. Today is the birthday of the great honorable black man Malcolm X, right? Malcolm X is one of my favorite human beings to ever walk this earth. And he is a hero of mine without a doubt, right? Um why the reason why I admire Malcolm X so much is that he was a fearless black man. Like during a time where black men were encouraged, black people in general were encouraged to cower to Jim Crow laws and to be subservient to racist standards across America at that time. Malcolm stood up firmly for what he believed in, and he spoke so eloquently, but at the same time, he spoke with conviction and he spoke firmly and he stood up for what he believed in no matter what the cost was. Even if that cost meant his life, he was willing to give his life to speak for his people and speak about or speak in support of what was right and what was right for his black people. Right? He was a man that was about his family, about his principles, and he had his morals intact. And that's something that you can never take away from a man, right? Malcolm was absolutely necessary for not only the black struggle, but also the ascension or the advancement of black people during that time period, right? Malcolm got people and black people in the mind of thinking that we can fight systemic racism. We can fight racial oppression and overcome that and elevate to a whole nother level that a lot of people once thought not achievable at that time, right? Like the courage and conviction he possessed at that time was incredible due to the racial tension and the extreme racism that existed in America at that during that time period, man. Like a black man would have been killed saying the things that Malcolm believed in. If a black man would be killed for even regurgitating the same sentiments that Malcolm X expressed. And he did it so fearlessly. And to me, like he stood firmly on what he believed in, no matter what the cost was. And that is a true example of what a man is supposed to be. Like that's why I'm extremely proud to be named after him. And it always boggled my mind and it worried me when I was in school, like how we would only learn, like when I was in elementary school, we would only learn about the same black people every year. And nobody ever really took a deep dive into Malcolm X or who he was and what he stood for. I had to learn these things on my own. I had to educate myself, my family had to help educate me on who Malcolm X was and why I was named after this man. Watching the movie, reading the books, and finding out exactly who he was, it made me have a love for this man as if like, I never met him a day in my life, of course, because I'm too young. But like I love this man like he was my own family member, right? And I realized why he's not talked about or why he's not put on a pedestal as some other individuals in our are spoken so highly about as some other individuals in the black history, right? And I'm never going to big up my brother Malcolm and demean my other brothers or sisters that came and helped the black cause as well. But I realize that he's not talked about or celebrated or he don't have his own day because white America was afraid of Malcolm and his message and what he represented, right? He was a black man that stood tall and he didn't mince his words for anybody. He didn't mince his words in the fear of not wanting to offend other people. I don't want to offend nobody if I say this. I don't want to offend people. I don't want to say the wrong things. I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. He had no problem speaking his mind and making people feel uncomfortable because that is how change comes. Change comes from a person making people uncomfortable and making them realize that there is an issue in our society and not being afraid to talk about it, bringing it up and trying to help find solutions to it. In order to find solutions to problems, you gotta acknowledge the problem and talk about it. And talk about it and don't handle it with kitty gloves. He didn't do that at all. He didn't kowtow to white supremacists. And I love and admire that energy. You know what I mean? He didn't kowtow. He didn't try to be subservient to them. He like, no, it is what it is. It's wrong. And this is what we gonna do about it, right? And you got to admire a man like that, even during a time period where laws were not put in place to really, the justice system was not protecting black people from a lot of these heinous crimes that was going on, a lot of these heinous hate crimes that was happening to black people. Malcolm recognized that and said, you know what, black brothers and sisters, Y'all got the Second Amendment too. You have a right to bear arms to protect you when there are no laws in place or the justice system is not protecting us from these vile acts. They're not protecting us. You can protect yourself because it's in the Constitution. And that was real, man. And just the man that he was, man. It's just a man who always again, that's a different type of heart beating in that man's chest. It was a different type of heart beating in his chest, to where at one point it felt like it was him against everybody, almost everybody, and he didn't care. He didn't care. He was willing to stand up for what he believed in order to speak the truth for his people, to speak the truth, to free his people from all type of systemic oppression and racism. And that's a real man. And that's why I'm so honored to share his name. Like, and I used to always think like, damn, like he don't have no day. He don't have his own specific day. Nobody even talks about him. Nobody acknowledges what he did. There will always be this little small paragraph in our textbooks and saying, oh, just explaining that, oh, and Malcolm X was an activist too. They would talk about, a lot of other black leaders, the same people we learn about every year. And no disrespect to them, because these are individuals that I look up to as well. I look up and admire Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I admire Rosa Parks. I admire Harriet Tubman. But they would go into long paragraphs about these black individuals, and then when they got to the end of the paragraph, and also some other civil rights leaders were guys like Malcolm X. And I'm like, why they don't go into in depth about who he was or what he stood for or his origins or what it was that he did. And it's done on purpose, because they was afraid of what he represented. They was afraid of who he was and what he stood for, man. And a lot of them still afraid to this day of him, that his message is really being spewed to the public. And I always want to say this too, man. Black pride and speaking positive into your people, uplifting your people, and trying to help them be the best that they can be, does not represent hate for any other race. Does not mean because you got black pride don't mean you hate white people. But people look at it like that, right? Does not mean you hate white people because you got pride in your people and you want to help them and you want to get better for them and you want people to respect your people and to not commit heinous acts against your people and respect them just like they would respect any other man or any white man in America. You want your people, excuse me, you want your people to have that same respect, and that's all Malcolm X did, man, and that's what he was about. And it's a shame that he was taken so young, man, so young from his family and his loved ones. But his message lives on today, and it burns in a lot of other brothers across the world, not just the United States, but across the world. And seeing the impact that he left today, like I see a lot of people talking about him, mostly black people though. It's crazy. There's like nobody ever. A lot of people of other ethnicities do not want to acknowledge Malcolm X. They don't want to talk about him much. The Islamic people do. A lot of Islamic people acknowledge Malcolm X. He shared the same faith that they do. But other than that, nobody really want to talk about Malcolm X at all. He's not celebrated as if when the great and honorable Dr. Martin Luther King's Day come about, he's talked about and everybody celebrates him, but nobody celebrates Malcolm because he's looked at as too radical. And but he was a man who was not afraid to speak on a subject and talk about how it's messed up and how it has had our people in such a terrible state for so long, and he's tired of it. He spoke that I'm tired of that. And that's real. That's real. And I'm tired of our people being oppressed and being trampled on. That's real. And you got to talk about racism to get to the solutions. You can't just act like it doesn't exist. Which is why when Morgan Freeman said the way to end racism is not to talk about it, that was the stupidest shit I ever heard in my life. Right? How are we going to try to make other people comfortable? Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. How are things going to change if we act like it doesn't exist and we're going to just sweep it under the rug like nothing's going on and nothing's happening when we seeing all these stuff happening every single day? Ahmaud Arbery, right? We seen Tamir Rice. We seen what happened to Trayvon Martin. We've seen it. We've seen it time and time again. All the time. We've seen it with all these different Philando Castile. We saw it with Alton Sterling. We saw it with all these individuals, right? And to act like it doesn't exist and don't talk about it and don't say that, leave it alone, don't talk about it. No, that ain't the energy you're supposed to have. You're supposed to have the energy of the honorable black man Malcolm X. And that's why I love that brother and why I'm glad to share his name. Happy birthday to Malcolm X. Peace and love and blessings to his family, his daughters, his late wife, Mrs. Betty Shabazz. And happy birthday, brother. Peace.